Okay.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Herald here on Badlands Media. I'm your host, Jon Herold, and I think I got a pretty interesting show for you guys tonight. Finally, something in the news that is actually exciting to me, and unfortunately, it comes from Paul Sperry, who I'm not a huge fan of. Some of his work is a little, I don't know. You'll see. There's an article that he put out where he gets some interviews and some whistleblowers who come forward, and he goes through and he basically is very critical, and this is putting it lightly, very critical of Bill Barr, John Durham, Gina Haspel's on there, John Bolton, and Mike Pompeo. And so I think we're going to read through that. It's probably something we're going to discuss on tonight's Power Hour as well. But it definitely raises some interesting questions. And they're questions I've been having too about the Durham thing. We'll talk about it. It's going to be a good one. There's a couple other interesting things we'll probably go through before we get into that. But I think the bulk of today's show is going to be going through this article, discussing what we find, what Sperry says, and some of it's like most of it is backed up. You'll see. So before we do any of that, let's get a quick word from our sponsors. And first up, we have River Bitcoin. Hope you guys bought the dip because it's come back up. Stack sats with River, the Bitcoin-only platform built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Why River? Zero fee recurring buys. You can stack Bitcoin effortlessly, hourly, daily, weekly, or monthly. 3.5% Bitcoin interest on cash. FDI insured, no minimums. You can withdraw at any time. Expert US-based support. Human help plus private client services for the big buys, $100,000 plus. Business accounts. You can boost your balance sheet with Bitcoin and earn 3.5% paid in Bitcoin. They also have a top-tier wallet. Send, receive, and manage Bitcoin securely. Unmatched security. Full reserve custody. Multi-sig cold storage. And proof of reserves. Join the Bitcoin revolution at badlandsmedia.tv/river and to earn real returns. That's badlandsmedia.tv/river. And if you're going to get Bitcoin, or if you have Bitcoin, you got to make sure that you are storing it properly. And the best place to store it is in a cold storage wallet, which you can get through our affiliate partner, Trezor, Trezor. You can go to badlandsmedia.tv/Trezor. This is what I use, Trezor, and safeguard your crypto with confidence. They've got over 2 million others who use the products as well. So how's the chat doing today? Anything exciting going on? Not really. Somebody heading to appointments, can't watch live. Thumb's broken again. Is it only this show? Maybe somebody's messing with my show. What in the world? River Hack from Anarchy. Good to see Anarchy. Auto draft on payday, low price boost when Bitcoin price is down. Jess Koch, you commented yesterday, my husband has kids and is retired. Yes, he's 49. 25 years working at state prison, 10 years military, just retired. Praise God, making more money retired. So I'm going to GART. Awesome. Well, congrats to you guys. It's pretty young to be retired. I was well on my way to be retired this year until the speed bump in the road. Phil Scarborough, good to see you. Good to Spetzel. I mean, we got the whole crew here. So let's jump into it. As expected, and not surprising in the slightest, there's no update once again on the Doge website. Whoops, that's not the one. Oh, there we go. There was one update to the presidential website, and that was this presidential message on the anniversary of the Monroe Doctrine. And this is actually a really interesting read. It's pretty short, but I want to read this for you guys real quick. On December 2nd of 1823, the doctrine of American sovereignty was immortalized in prose when President James Monroe declared before the nation a simple truth that has echoed throughout the ages. The United States will never waver in defense of our homeland, our interests, or the well-being of our citizens. Today, my administration proudly reaffirms this promise under a new Trump corollary. to the Monroe Doctrine, that the American people, not foreign nations nor globalist institutions, and I love that he put that in there, will always control their own destiny in our hemisphere. More than 2 centuries ago, President Monroe proclaimed before the United States Congress what is today known as the legendary Monroe. I cannot read today. This is going to be a rough one because a bulk of what I want to talk about today is in the article. So you're going to have to bear with me until my mouth catches up to my mind. Monroe Doctrine, a bold policy that rejects foreign interference of faraway nations and confidently asserts United States leadership in the Western Hemisphere. The American continents, by the free and independent condition which they have assumed and maintained, are henceforth not to be considered as subjects for future colonization by any European powers. Basically, President Monroe here is giving the middle finger to Europe, which I think we can all appreciate at any time. With those mighty words, every nation knew that the United States of America was emerging as a superpower unlike anything the world had ever known, and that nothing could ever rival the strength, unity, and resolve of a freedom-loving people. In the century since, President Monroe's doctrine of sovereignty has guarded the American continents against communism, fascism, and foreign infringement. I don't know if I'd agree with that sentence. We literally have a communist, Mondami, as the mayor of New York. They say we're all fascists, right? Foreign infringement, how much foreign interference has been in our elections, how much foreign lobby dollars are used to buy off politicians. I'm not sure I agree with this, but anyway, as the 47th president, I'm proudly reasserting this time-honored policy. This is great. Trump, I just want to see it. I'm going to finish this before I actually comment on it. Since I took office, I've aggressively pursued an America First policy of peace through strength. We restored U.S. privileged access through the Panama Canal. Nobody really talks about that anymore. That's a great point. We are reestablishing American maritime dominance. We are disrupting non-market practices in the international supply chain and logistics sectors. My administration is also halting the flow of deadly drugs flowing through Mexico, ending the invasion of illegal aliens along our southern border. Anyway, he's fighting narco-terrorists. Reinvigorated by my Trump corollary, the Monroe Doctrine is alive and well, and American leadership is coming roaring back stronger than before. Today, we renew our pledge to always uphold American sovereignty, security, and safety first. I want to check, and I forgot to do this earlier. Let me just copy this quick. But typically every year, on certain anniversaries, they will do a proclamation, which is what this executive action is. And what am I looking for here? Donald Trump. Okay. They'll do it on the anniversary. So like every year on the anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, he'll put out a proclamation reaffirming our independence, whatever. So I'm trying to see if there is any other executive actions from Trump ever. Oops, let's do newest. On this date, having to do with the Monroe Doctrine. Not really seeing it. Let me put this in quotes. Yeah, so I'm not really seeing that at all. Interesting. So I thought it was a good read. I mean, because this is what we all want, right? When we think MAGA and America First, we think everything he just said in that document. Like, we are not going to be, our country and our freedom is not going to be dictated or taken away by you other assholes. Pardon my swear jar. But let's stand by it. We'll know that we've accomplished our America First goals when we do actually see these foreign interests out of our country, out of our politics. And I don't think we get that until we fix elections. So we have some work to do, but still interesting. There is, okay, let me get to this article here, because I think I'm going to get into this next, because I don't know how long this is going to take. I don't know how long I'm going to rant on it. So we'll see what happens. John, take a deep breath, chill. Nobody will sue you if you screw up the words, bro. You've got this. Chin up, buttercup. This app is simple enough. Even normies can figure it out, kid. Appreciate you, man. Researching the connection between L. Ron Hubbard and Crowley while watching this? That's notable. mean, maybe not notable, but interesting. Okay. This is the article, guys. Real Clear Investigations exclusive from Paul Sperry. How Trump's own appointees aided Russiagate plot against him. You guys know, I mean, especially when the declassified documents were coming out, or the classified documents were being declassified and coming out. I was going through all those. I'm talking about them on the show. We have not really had any new declassifications in a while. It's been kind of disappointing, especially for me. It's been since the Charlie Kirk assassination. So this is kind of like the newest or the latest form of that. It's not really anything declassified, but it's discussing the topic. And I think this is something that needs to be discussed, especially in our community, because a lot of people look to the Durhams and I'm including myself in this, by the way. The Durhams, the Barrs, the Pompeos as like, I mean, you know, if we're going to play the white hat, black hat game, I'm probably going to lean white hat, right? But we can even throw Pence in there, even though he's not listed in this article. But we're getting more and more context about some of the things that took place back in Trump's first term, and not all of it looks pretty. And I've been asking questions about the Durham thing, especially. John Durham was the guy who first investigated the Comey leak and never brought charges, even though, like, we brought charges now. So there was enough there to prosecute Comey at the time, but it never happened. Somebody other than Durham had to bring it. But John Durham was one. Like, so why is that? And you can speculate the white hat stuff and the, you know, those conspiracy, which is fine. I'm not going to do that though. And then you look at the entire complexity of what the Russiagate scandal was and what John Durham was investigating, and then what we finally got when he came out in 2023 with his report. And it was like a nothing burger, for being totally honest. He was highly critical. It was a strongly worded report, you know, scrutinizing what the intelligence community did, but he didn't really get to the bottom of anything, didn't really put anybody that we wanted under indictment. But then we kind of moved the goalposts. Like, yeah, there is this classified appendix. Maybe that's where the damning stuff is. But we got that now too. And no, it's not in there either. So what does that mean? And I think these are the discussions we need to start having. And whether we do good or bad doesn't matter. I mean, wherever we come to on those, you know, discussions is fine. We'll probably never get any sort of real resolution, but we need to at least have the discussions, because I think it'll allow us to, you know, figure out where we got to go next. But let's read the article here. And I don't have the whole thing highlighted, lucky for you guys, but it's a good chunk of it. When Obama administration officials manufactured U.S. intelligence tying Donald Trump to Moscow following his stunning 2016 victory, they had no idea Trump's own political appointees would help them undermine Trump's presidency and his chances of re-election in 2020. RCI's review of recently declassified documents and exclusive interviews with former Trump officials reveals for the first time how key members of Trump's cabinet and other appointees during his first term shrouded the previous administration's machinations. I think I said that word right. And either deliberately or inadvertently misled the public into thinking the fake Russiagate intelligence was real. So this part, you know, the recently declassified documents, that's not going to be really new to this audience because I've gone through all that stuff. The exclusive interviews, that will be new. But even if you're new to the show or whatever, I'll give context as we go. But we have it all. I have my mind map out and available for when we if we need it, as I think of stuff. But yeah, I made I haven't like added to this mind map since Charlie Kirk was shot, because we haven't got anything. But anyway, let's keep going. Former special counsel John Durham, former national security advisor John Bolton, we're already aware he's a bad dude. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and former CIA Director Gina Haspel dismissed or buried evidence that cast doubt on a foundational document of the Russiagate hoax, the intelligence community assessment prepared in the waning days of the Obama administration. I think this, I mean, we kind of already knew this, And it really, when it came down to whether, Bill Barr or John Durham or some of these other people that we've looked to as like, being white hats for playing that game, we've excused away the bad behavior. I like using that phrase now. We excuse away the bad behavior because we think they were doing something else. And I'm guilty as sin of this, guys. I do it all the time when it comes to why did they do this and implement what I think was devolution and not pursue this. Like devolution is kind of that excuse, right? That's me excusing away bad behavior. I believe I'm right about that. I really do. But there are some things and some people that I assume were a part of it or had to be a part of it. That some like this is like, well, maybe not. So you'll see what I mean as we go through this and some of the things. I think Durham is just kind of the biggie here because I don't know how heavily featured he was in the Q drops, but I know the Q community was like really keyed in on him as being the guy, the Punisher. He's going to bring us the justice. We never got it, and this sheds new light on that. Durham, who was appointed by Attorney General William Barr, stopped the declassification and release of key exculpatory evidence debunking the ICA on the eve of the 2020 election, which has not been reported previously. And I believe that's correct. Sometimes Sperry will say like, our exclusive reporting or this hasn't been reported before. It's not true. I'll even show you an example in a little bit where he's like, never before, exclusive report when I was talking about it 8 days prior to him or something like that. It doesn't matter. He's got a bigger audience than I do. Anyway, the ICA helped frame the false narrative, which led to multiple espionage investigations that dogged Trump throughout his first term. The Russian President Vladimir Putin had authorized dirty tricks to help Trump win the 2016 election. A 2018 government review of that document, which was chiefly prepared by Obama's CIA Director John Brennan and his National Intelligence Director James Clapper, found that its most explosive claims were based on one scant, unclear, and unverifiable fragment of a sentence from one of the substandard intelligence reports, according to a recently declassified report that Trump administration and later Biden administration officials had helped keep locked away in a CIA vault. It also cited as supporting intelligence debunked political dirt paid for by Hillary Clinton's campaign. Now, the letter there, or the report they're talking about, is this one. I don't know if you guys will remember it, but we went over this on the show. This is I think this was put together by the HSPCI committee. I think that's the acronym. House. Let me see if I can figure out what it's for sure called, because Derek Harvey was on that. Where the heck is the HPSCI, House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. That's what it's called. This is a report they put together, and this is the one where we have, I think it's like Hillary Clinton was sick and crazy, and everybody thought she was crazy, and this debunks the whole thing. That Russia was attempting to help Trump. Okay, like that's what they wanted. It debunks it, but they buried it away. That's the story right now where we're at. But we've gone through that report before and have a Twitter thread on it. If you want, I can share it. Mommy with 6. I just tuned in. What is he reading from? What's going on? This is an article, to summarize, from Real Clear Investigations, Paul Sperry, highly critical of John Durham, Bill Barr, Mike Pompeo, Gina Haspel, John Bolton, all these characters that were in Trump's first administration, and their role in not only suppressing information that would have debunked the ongoing Russiagate stuff, but then also burying and suppressing information that probably could have helped with the election. Where am I at? Okay. So John Bolton, and again, some of the stuff is not new, but there is some stuff that is new that I want to talk about. The suppression can be traced back to at least mid-2018. That's when Fred Fleets, who was National Security Advisor John Bolton's chief of staff, heard that investigators at his former employer, the House Intelligence Committee, were probing the raw intelligence on the ICA supporting the assessment's key judgments. That's Devin Nunes, Kash Patel was working with him, Ezra Cohen-Watnick, Derek Harvey. I mean, all these people were Michael Ellis in and around the House Intelligence Committee's report. And they did a really good job with that report. But not all of the underlying intelligence was allowed to be released. Fleets told Real Clear Investigations that he was startled to learn that the investigators discovered numerous intelligence documents showing the ICA's key conclusion that Russia's developed a clear preference for Trump and aspired to help him win the election was based on shoddy and fabricated intelligence. I mean, it's not really shocking now, but remember at the time, like you have this whole Russiagate story, the media's running with it. Trump, was up against, if you think of the Rich Higgins memo, the battle space he was up against, a pervasive 24/7 media onslaught. Everybody's in on it. And Trump is just barely struggling to push back against the narrative. And that's when the Q drops up and all these things. And I think that's how he bypassed it. That is what it is. That's a different form of warfare. But if you think of the normie mind, the story that Trump colluded with Russia was just everywhere. Whether you believe it or not was one thing, but it was everywhere. And a lot of people fell for it. Like, people are so easily manipulated based on what they see on their computer screen. So easily, it's sad, really. And I'm a victim of it. People believe terrible things about me because of out of context stuff. Like, this is what the media does on a much larger scale and a much more well-funded scale. The ICA misrepresented both the significance and credibility of the dossier reports, which were either proven false or unsubstantiated. The top secret congressional analysis noted the ICA, referred to the dossier as Russian plans and intentions, falsely implying that the dossier had intelligence value for understanding Moscow's influence operations. Fleets thought Bolton should be briefed on the unpublished House report, which undermined the prevailing narrative that Trump and Moscow had colluded during the 2016 campaign. When he returned to his West Wing office, Fleet sat down at his classified computer and wrote a synopsis of the review and gave it to his boss. But Bolton did not, in turn, brief the president. He didn't do anything with it. He never told Trump, and I never heard anything about it again. So, that's not surprising. John Bolton, total douche. This Fleets guy, though, never heard of him before, if I'm being totally honest. Why would he not go to somebody else? Like, you type up this report, you understand that, like, there's this unpublished House report that they're putting together that totally debunks the prevailing narrative of the Trump-Russia collusion, and you just give it to Bolton and then leave it at that? Little suspicious. I mean, this kind of seems like, okay, well, maybe you could have done a little more. But anyway, I don't know this guy. I never heard of him. So, but he's mentioned a few times. If Trump had known about the shocking revelations from this classified report, Fleet said, he could have used them to remove the cloud of suspicion hanging over his presidency concerning Russia. So I know hindsight's always 20/20, and he's saying this now. But if you knew this at the time as well, why didn't you go beyond Bolton to get that to somebody else? But this is the other side of this. Like, as I'm reading this article, and even this right here, Trump himself, the whole time, knew that it was all bogus, right? Like, when you're being accused of something, and you know for a fact you didn't do the thing you're being accused of, like, what does it really matter about the classified report? Other than, like, for future criminal investigations and showing that it was fabricated and all these things, like, yeah, that's great. But in terms of, like, what you believe and what you say, you're going to operate based on what you know. Like, Trump knew he didn't do the thing that they accused him of doing. And so he was very vocal about that. He never really stopped talking about how it was fabricated. It was a hoax. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with this statement. And this is why I highlighted a different color, because I know I wanted to comment on this more. He could have used them to remove a cloud of suspicion hanging over his presidency. There were a lot of things that came out in 2018, 2019, 2020 that chipped away at the narrative. And then we had the Mueller report. I think that was 2019. Totally debunked it, like no evidence, like all these things. The cloud of suspicion that hung over the presidency concerning Russia just transitioned into the impeachment cloud, then the COVID cloud, then the stolen election cloud. I mean, they just kept moving the goalposts on why Trump was bad, which I understand that as well. Been a victim to that too. Moving the goalposts. So I don't know if I agree with that. But anyway, let's keep going. Mike Pompeo. What Fleets did not know at the time was that the CIA was also hindering the House probe of the ICA. As Trump's first CIA chief, Mike Pompeo was skeptical that his predecessor Brennan had gotten the Russian intelligence assessment as wrong as he was hearing from the autopsy conducted by the House Intelligence Committee. We showed him a draft, but he didn't believe it. He said we have to be wrong on a lot of the stuff, said Derek Harvey. And this is what really perked my ears or eyes, whatever, when I was reading this. Because like to this point, it's like this really, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm fully bought into whether I care. I didn't know if I cared, and I still don't care. But Derek Harvey being mentioned as like giving some of these quotes is notable, not only for his role with the House Select Committee on Intelligence, his connection to the hit list squad, and Rich Higgins himself, somebody I've written about. I mean, those who've been watching me for a long time, you know the hit list squad. If you're new, you can go to devolution.us and go to part 23, Devolution part 23. Rich Higgins, Ezra Cohen-Watnick, Derek Harvey, and Steve Bannon were working together to weed out the deep state actors from the NSC. And they got orders from Trump to do it. And then when General Flynn got, booted out of there and they brought in McMaster, the thing got disbanded shortly after the Q drop started. I mean, it's an interesting article, worth a read. But those guys are always intertwined and connected. And I put more weight into what some of those people say than I would other people. And so Derek Harvey being involved in this article is important. And him saying that they showed Mike Pompeo a draft of, again, this report and all the stuff in there, and basically showing how Brennan fabricated this thing and lied, and Pompeo was skeptical. What do you guys think of Pompeo? I am curious. So I don't know. I don't know. I know the Q drops. Everybody says trust Kansas, but I don't know, guys. He's super skinny right now too. And can we really trust somebody who's lost that much weight so quickly? I think I trusted him more when he was fatter. Is that a salesman trick? Reading him for to screw the sale? I don't know what you're talking about. No trust. Bannon and Epstein have many email threads. Yeah, well, Bannon did he did interview, didn't he? He interviewed Epstein. So I think that kind of makes sense. Pompeo is sketchy. Pompeo I don't trust. Ricky Irish, Gilmore. See, I think I'm with you guys. And honestly, our default stance on any of these people that we don't know personally is, how can I trust these people? How can I trust them? You can't. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes. But this is notable. As a result, he said we didn't get a lot of cooperation from Pompeo. So Derek Harvey not getting cooperation from the CIA chief, showing that, hey, previous intelligence agency directors, heads, Brennan, Clapper, were responsible for this entire narrative. And he buried it. Multiple attempts to reach Pompeo didn't come through, whatever. Gina Haspel, Pompeo's deputy at the time, was Gina Haspel, who appears to have played a much more active role in drawing a veil over the information, a veteran CIA official who Pompeo had put in charge of most of the day-to-day operations of the agency. She apparently didn't appreciate congressional staffers investigating the agency's spycraft that went into the highly classified and restricted version of the ICA. Do you remember, I think it was the 2020 election, wasn't it? Where everybody's like, she got into a shootout in Italy over the election servers and stuff. John, next Gart in France, please. Well, if you're from France, that's really cool. Thank you for tuning in. But I don't think I'm not going to get a passport, guys. Probably not for a while, if ever. So you got to come to America for a Gart. We can't do a great American restoration tour in France. I don't care about restoring France to greatness. No offense. Was it ever great? I don't know. Okay, let's keep going. Where was I? Sources told RCA she made sure investigators' on-site examination, which spanned from 2017 to 2020, that's a long, long time to be investigating this one thing, was closely monitored and tightly controlled. The House investigators had to be cleared into a read room at Langley each day to examine the records the CIA used to support the ICA, and they were forced to lock up their laptops and materials there when they left at night. Haspel didn't allow them to take even their notes out of their workspace there, Harvey said. They couldn't take anything out of the building, which, I mean, I suppose that makes sense. But, obviously they're framing it as like they were trying to keep everything in-house so they could bury it. Maybe that's exactly what was going on. But I feel like classified, you're going over stuff, like you go into a skiff and review something, you can't write stuff down and take it with you. You have to go outside, and if you want notes, you have to do it all from memory there. Haspel didn't allow them to take, I already said that. Another House Intelligence Committee source familiar with the operation said the investigators suspected the CIA was spying on the committee computers back on Capitol Hill. That's nuts if they could prove that. They reported back to then committee chairman Devin Nunes that the CIA had tampered with the computers the agency forced them to use to draft their report inside headquarters. And this was only after they were denied access to any computers in the first 4 months of their oversight investigation. Deliberate technical modifications to the CIA-issued computers made the machines unstable and unreliable, which slowed down investigators' work, according to a committee report documenting the CIA's efforts to obstruct their probe. The report, which was obtained by RCI, added peculiar machine glitches caused lines of text to appear fuzzy, forcing restarts to correct and sometimes resulting in lost text or footnotes. And I don't think I've seen this report, if it exists, but I would love to see it. Maybe sometimes he links stuff, sometimes he doesn't. And I don't see that one linked. Pompeo and Haspel also placed restrictions on their access to Brennan's 5 handpicked authors of the ICA, who initially were kept at arm's length. It took nearly 5 months for committee staff to be allowed to interview the ICA authors, the internal report said. Committee spokeswoman Leslie Byers told RCI, just getting interviews with the ICA drafters was a massive battle with the CIA back then, which further makes the point of the extraordinary measures the CIA went through to obstruct the HPSCI staffer. She added, why obstruct if there was nothing to hide? In May of 2018, Trump appointed Pompeo as Secretary of State and named Haspel as his replacement. You guys are all aware of that. Joe Gilmore, it's kind of weird how John is real quick to point out he got no passport. That's because in the lawsuit against me, it stated that I in confidence told people that I would flee the country if I ever got in legal trouble. I just think it's funny, I'm going to flee the country, but I don't even got a passport. That's why I keep pointing that out. Yeah, and plus, fixed bayonet, I'm so rich. Who needs a passport when you're as rich as I am? But that's why I point that out. France was almost great. Then they took too many heads. That's a good one. Richard Rohr, this is the stance. I trust Trump, and everyone else is a Fed until proved otherwise. Hey, John, come to the great state of Canada for a GART next year. No. He said he doesn't have a passport and said nothing about multiple. John claiming he has no passport is obviously just a cover to try and prove that he isn't Mossad. Phil Scarborough, I think I'm with you here. Used to love Pompeo because he's a CCP hawk, but don't like him now because he's a spook. I'm curious, how many of the big names that we used to look to as white insiders, white hats, have you changed your opinion on over the last 2-3 years? I've speculated a lot of these people, whether or not they were involved in devolution or would have been aware of it. I have no idea. I always speculated that Pompeo was a good dude. It was would have probably been aware of devolution, likely a white hat. And some of the behaviors, you can point to as they did it because they needed to implement devolution. They knew they had to implement something because they knew the election was going to be stolen, all those things, right? But this isn't from that time frame. This stuff is from well before 2020 stolen election, the devolution pretext stuff. So I don't know. Not buying it. Keith O'Higgins, Dollar Rant. John has dual citizenship with Minnesota. That makes him Mossad. That's clever. Funny. Brian Official, John, did you watch Badlands Story Hour last night? The clip about not having a passport. No, I did not. I don't watch that show. I have watched that show a couple times, but not often. At this point, I really only trust Trump. Phil Scarborough, I'm with you there. Bravest John, love John reads the jokes about him. I will read anything that tries to make fun of me, but you cannot be mad when I give it back. Now I hope John realizes I'm completely joking. Of course. Eloquides, you're good. Ash 1776, John was rooting for a Canadian hockey team last night, not based. It was only against the Avs. Okay, so I am a Minnesota Wild fan. I don't get to watch all that much. I really only watch playoff hockey unless I'm watching live. But the Wild beat the Avs in a shootout. But the Avs are like 19-1 or something. 19-1-5. That's insane. They've only lost one game that wasn't in overtime. They're cheating. They're cheating somehow, Ash. But yeah, they're in the same division. So Phil Scarborough, MTG is turning out to be a big old shill. Like, every one of them are. Every one of them. The Durham rug is complicated. I agree. John has an underground bunker. I have a basement. I have like a double basement, multi-level home. I forget, when I joke about my wealth, I always forget that I can, I live in a 7-story house because technically there are 7 levels and I've like a basement, sub-basement thing, which it's just really weird. Like my basement has like this unfinished weird room and then another like storage room that like goes down, just like keeps going down, which constitutes 3 levels. I used to like Barr. He plays the bagpipes after all, but he's an old Bush era spook. Yeah, I don't know about Barr either. Man, that's a tough one. Durham's been the one that I think is the hardest for me to justify. And then when you go through the Durham stuff and you come out on the other side of it, like there was never any there with Durham, then what does that mean for Barr? Creates some questions for sure. Even though you want to give these people the benefit of the doubt, there's no reason to. Oh man, it's already 12:40. I gotta cruise. We might end up going a little long today, guys. After she took over the CIA, she locked up all drafts of the House Intelligence Committee report in a gun safe inside a vault in a highly secure room at CIA headquarters until she left office in January 2021. She also impounded all the examiner's notes and other work materials. So not only was it in a secure room, but it was in a safe or a vault inside the secure room. And then it was inside a gun safe inside that vault. That's like 5D protection right there. But then it says until she left office in 2021. What happened after that? Anyway, Harvey says Gina Haspel buried the report. Knowledgeable sources say that before Haspel left, she demanded that both Barr and Durham keep the report classified and not release any part of it before the 2020 election. Now, why would she be allowed to do that? And why would they play ball? Doesn't make sense. In 2020, Gina Haspel was running around with her hair on fire. I'm assuming that's metaphorically, saying it should never see the light of day. According to a former senior official at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence said, I still cannot believe that she was President Trump's CIA director. It's totally insane. It's not clear if Haspel contributed to the ICA, but in 2016, she was the CIA's station chief in London, where she assisted Russiagate investigators, including Peter Strzok. She reportedly approved his travel to London to meet with Australian diplomat Alexander Downer, who claimed Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos told him the Russians had dirt on Hillary Clinton. This whole thing is so stupid. It's really wild when you think about how they fabricated this together. And it's like, it's so dumb. And yet they used it as the basis and the media ran with it. The left's Trump derangement syndrome is so bad that they can't even think logically. Haspel was briefed on the matter, which became the basis for the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation, targeting several Trump advisors, including Papadopoulos. Haspel was also in London during the so-called bump ops, the FBI ran on Papadopoulos, bump ops, and Trump's national security advisor, Michael Flynn, where the Bureau used longtime CIA asset Stephen Halper, to try to catch them having possible compromising contacts with Russians. A source familiar with Haspel's thinking said she objected to releasing the report debunking the ICA because it might reveal sensitive intelligence, though its recent release proved no national security interests were harmed, including sources and methods. Now, this next part is the Durham part. We can all shed a tear. Pour a drink out to the homies. Yeah, Phil Scarborough, I forgot about that quote. But Pompeo was indeed the peaceful transition to a second Trump presidency, quote. That's true. Ash, I don't know if we can assume it's metaphorical. Remember Hades from Hercules? That's true. Hair was on fire. That's permanently. I've thought about this, Bay. Bay says I should declare Badlandia a sovereign nation. That would solve a lot of problems. It would. I just need to buy the territory first. Maybe after the lawsuit's done and I get some of my money back, we'll buy some land and we'll declare our independence. We'll call it the Bay Theater Dave Doctrine. Richard Rohr, what about Huber having 470 investigators and ability to convene grand jury among powers not yet disclosed? Yeah. What about him, though? Like when are we going to see the end of that? That's the thing. I'm willing to put a little tiny toe on that rug, because I remember talking about that, reading about that. Like that was an interesting rug to be on for sure. But if the rugs don't generate anything, then I'm not explaining this properly. I'm trying to explain that it's probably a rug. Like if an investigation does not actually end up yielding anything, and all we can do to point to like, yeah, there's something there is sealed indictments that we don't even know if those sealed indictments are from this stuff. Like that's speculation. It's hard to know. So it's a rug until proven otherwise. Just like everybody's a Fed until proven otherwise, everything should be a rug until proven otherwise as well. That should be your baseline stance, and that's how you don't get let down in the truth movement. Nevertheless, guys, here we go. As Trump's first term drew to a close, there was one more opportunity to expose the Obama administration's machinations. Again, if I'm saying that word wrong, somebody let me know. Ironically, that was forestalled by the special counsel who had been appointed to investigate the origins of the Russiagate hoax, John Durham. It was Trump's Attorney General Barr who tapped Durham, an old DOJ colleague and friend. While Durham's final report, which was not issued until 2023, raised serious questions about the Russiagate probe, his most significant decision may have occurred in the final days of the 2020 election when he quashed efforts to expose the plot to weaponize U.S. intelligence. That October, then DNI Ratcliffe sought to declassify and release a devastating 44-page report that refuted the Obama-ordered intelligence community assessment's explosive finding that Moscow tried to swing the election to Trump. When the ICA was finally declassified this summer, it set off a firestorm of controversy, leading to the investigation of Brennan and Clapper and the indictment of former FBI Director James Comey. That's not quite true, because wasn't he indicted for lying to Congress for the leaks? Not necessarily anything to do with the report. And again, this is that report they're talking about. So DNI Ratcliffe wanted to release this in 2020, but John Durham somehow had more authority to shut it down. But this is his justification for it. In 2020, however, Durham insisted the ICA review be kept under wraps. Durham argued he was using the secret report drafted by two career House Intelligence Committee investigators in his inquiry into whether the FBI and CIA had politicized and weaponized intel against Trump. Here's a quote. Durham specifically asked for that report to not be declassified and released, along with other things, because he wanted to use it as part of investigation and prosecutions, or so we presumed. The former senior ODNI intelligence official familiar with Ratcliffe's declassification effort said. I'm curious who that is, who this guy is, or he or she, whatever. Ratcliffe, now CIA director, initially agreed to withhold the report, which remained buried for the next 5 years until Trump's new DNI Tulsi Gabbard declassified and publicly released it virtually unredacted in July. After we gave Durham the report, along with over 1,000 pages of other classified documents, he went ghost, said the former senior intelligence official who spoke on the condition of anonymity. We didn't hear from him, and he didn't appear to do anything with the report. Although Gabbard's release of documents makes clear that the ICA was a foundational document in the Russiagate hoax, Durham all but ignored it in his final report on the scandal, outside of a footnote on page 7, citing the ICA, which states, see also intelligence community assessment, assessing Russian activities and intentions in recent U.S. elections. There's no mention of the ICA elsewhere in his 316-page report, nor does it appear in a recently declassified appendix to the report, even though Durham had interviewed the 2 Obama officials principally responsible for putting together the ICA, Brennan and Clapper. I have no clue why Durham left it out. And so do you understand why does anybody trust this dude's reporting? Totally agree, Dave. I don't know if we can. And also, like, using anonymous sources, don't like that at all either. I don't trust people just say a source tells me this. Like, you're probably making that up. And he very well could be making this up too. He did quote Harvey though, but when it comes to the Durham thing, like, this is damning if true. But it needs to be taken with a massive grain of salt because anonymous source. So I'm just getting distracted by the chat. John is from the future where Bismarck becomes the nation's capital. Oh, that'd be funny. Never going to happen. I'm surprised it's even North Dakota's capital. Only if hell freezes over, which is basically what it's like here in the winter. So, but do you understand what they're saying with this? Like, Ratcliffe wanted to declassify this report back in 2020 to show that the whole Russiagate thing was fabricated. Okay, I wonder the time frame on that too. Like, was it in early 2020? Was it later, like close to the election, around the time of the Hunter Biden laptop stuff? Could this have been a little October surprise? But then Durham's like, no, you can't do that. I need it. But then he never used it. So why did you have them not release it if you said you were going to use it in your investigation, but you never actually referenced it one time in the entire report or the classified appendix? Doesn't make sense. Not a very good look for Durham if this is true, if it's true. Although Gabbard's release, I already read that. Yeah, I read all that. Okay, the declassified ICA is now being used as evidence in criminal probes of Obama-era figures, including Brennan by the Justice Department, prosecutors in the Southern District of Florida who are reportedly trying to build a conspiracy of corruption case, we're told, recently issued a flurry of grand jury subpoenas targeting Brennan and Clapper. You know what's kind of interesting? We had a huge story, like everybody was talking about going viral, that they were opening grand juries in January, supposedly around this case. If you haven't opened the grand juries yet, according to those reports, how could they have already issued subpoenas? Because those would have had to come from grand jury that's already in place. Kind of shows you how the clickbait works, if that makes sense. They see communications records, other documents covering all the stuff. Durham's decisions are still influencing the debate over Russiagate. Washington media are skeptical prosecutors will find anything incriminating because they maintain that Durham already plowed that ground. And, you know, a couple week and a half, I'm going to be speaking at that event in Kansas, emceeing it, and Matt Gaetz will be there. And I will say one of really the best line of questioning, I think, that happened of Durham that was actually critical, removing emotions, you know, putting your emotions aside about what you felt about Durham at the time. Some people were mad at Matt Gaetz for questioning him like that. But when the classified appendix comes out and stuff like this comes out, like, Matt Gaetz was all over it. I'm gonna have to ask him about this. Durham's decisions are read that. John Durham, the special counsel appointed by Trump administration, looked exhaustively at the Russian interference assessment and found no criminal wrongdoing. Ken Delinian, I don't care about him. However, John Durham is relevant, incriminating. I'm gonna keep going. Rigged intelligence. The CIA engaged in a conspiracy to fabricate intelligence against Trump, Harvey said. We know this. They were effectively running an intelligence op targeting his campaign and presidency. The ICA was a key piece of the conspiracy, he noted, because it was strategically used as a pretext to pursue countless espionage investigations of Trump and his advisors that crippled his presidency. Yeah. But I'm not going to read the rest of it. We'll talk more about this tonight. But if true, take with a grain of salt. It's really not a good look for Durham, and really makes you wonder what the hell he's doing. I mean, I'm already wondering that because we didn't get anything out of that, and it also makes you wonder, like, if Durham did participate, and maybe that's too strong of a word, but if he didn't pursue things or requested things be classified longer or not be declassified because he was going to use them and he ended up not, do you think it's possible, and total just speculative question here, is it possible that Durham gets brought in and asked questions by the grand jury if they're actually going to get to the bottom of what happened with the Russiagate stuff, and you're investigating the investigators? You should probably investigate the investigator of the investigator of the investigators. You know what I mean? Could you imagine the heads exploding if Durham got like subpoenaed and asked questions about this? Either way, Durham is a big rug. Durham needs to be questioned. I agree. Either way, we need to know. Black Hat Destroyer, fake Arizona Senator Markelly, one of the seditious six, has a twin brother, Scott, who's doing some Ukraine shit with Zelensky. Did you know that? I didn't. I knew he had a twin. I didn't know he was doing Ukraine shit, whatever that means. What does it mean to be doing Ukraine shit? Pardon my swear jar stuff. What does it mean? Ukraine shit. Corruption? The YouTube videos. Oh, thank you, Badlands Media fan, for the gifted subs. The YouTube videos are not even close to everything. The thing is, a lot don't want to get clean. They're so depressed they can't see anything past shooting up every day. Gotcha. That was not relevant to what we're talking about. Keep on rugging the free world. Could it be that the RICO case has begun several years ago and indictments have been served? There's no statute of limitations on treason. Timing is everything. And that's the thing, guys. I mean, I totally have gone down that rabbit hole too. And this is, I'm just trying to, I feel like, how do I say this? You know how I'm baseless conspiracies? Like, my job is to play devil's advocate. Like, that's my role on the show. Zach presents conspiracy, and I typically just like poke holes in it and ask questions. Sometimes comedic relief, whatever. I sometimes feel like the truth community also needs the devil's advocate approach to things, because if you don't have somebody there, people there that are willing to question it, while I agree with a lot of the things that on the other side of the equation, if you don't have the other side of the equation where the devil's advocate stuff and the legitimate questions lie, and I feel like a lot of people in the Badlands community at least participate in this side of the equation, you're gonna get stuck, and eventually you're gonna black pill. I do think that's the ultimate goal of, like, you constantly feed your confirmation bias and constantly, like, you know, you're trusting in something that you don't know for sure is even real, or you can't prove. If at any point that falls out from under you, that rug is pulled, that's like the most opportune time for anybody to black pill. Somebody's got to play devil's advocate, I think, to keep pulling people away from there. It's not that you can't explore those as possibilities. I just don't want people to put all their eggs in that basket. That's what I'm doing here. So I understand that there are hundreds of thousands of sealed indictments, and a lot of them went up when certain investigations were going on. I've read every one of these investigation documents. There's reasons to believe there's bigger things happening behind the scenes. Speculative reasons, though. And so when you understand, like, that it's just speculative, that's okay. It's okay to speculate. Love doing that stuff. Thought experiments are great. But as Phil Scarborough says, not everything is an op or part of the plan. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Dragon 45, I'm about there, John. I feel a black pill incoming. And the black pill is such a, I don't want to say it's a choice, because it's not a choice. Nobody chooses to black pill, but I feel like people You choose to approach the info war with a mindset that makes you vulnerable to the black pill. And I'm not trying to like say that you're not critically thinking or any of these things, but it's the risk of only feeding yourself information that feeds your confirmation bias. You take the things that always make you feel good, always make you feel good. What happens when that gets cut off and they can't make you feel good about something anymore because it's just clearly and obviously not the case anymore, right? It's like a drug addict. Like you shoot up with heroin long enough, eventually when your heroin supply gets cut off, you're going to go through a little dark night of the soul event there. That's when people black pill. It's not that the stuff that feeds your confirmation bias isn't information you can't consume. You just got to take the Narcan with it, right? You take the fentanyl information, have fun with it, whatever, but take the Narcan with it. Or is Narcan fentanyl? I don't know how the drugs work, but whatever. You take the counteracting thing and you stay neutral in the middle. That's how you consume information. That way, there's nothing that's going to upset. You're never going to get too high. You're never going to get too low. Somebody should write a song about that. And you won't black pill. And honestly, like when my mindset went there, and I feel like I've always kind of had this approach, but when I've really like thought about it, what my approach is to information and honed in on that and tried to like, I was very conscious about how I operated and consumed information. I found myself becoming more and more white pilled. Like I feel super white pilled, even though I present myself as a realist and people think it's negative and whatever. That's fine. I mean, I don't care what people think of me or say about me. I really don't. That stuff went away almost 2 years ago. But I'm so good. I'm as white pilled as I've ever been, Caucasian pilled. And I don't think anything could actually happen in terms of the info war that could blackpill me. I can't think of a single thing. So that's just a cautionary tale. Do not only consume information that feeds your confirmation bias. You will at some point black pill. Badlands Media fan, no black pilling, no white pilling. Just stop popping pills. So fentanyl is the Narcan. Is that right? Phil Scarborough, I have a hopium problem. I know it. I know you do too, man, but we're talking you off the ledge. You just need to look at everything like a Vulcan. That's a good one. Patience is both a fruit and a gift of the Holy Spirit. That's true. And a lot of people, I'm not trying to criticize you guys either, by the way, in the audience. I feel like our audience is special, unique. You're here because you appreciate this kind of information, this kind of approach. Not everybody does. The people that I'm saying, like, stop feeding your confirmation bias, they're not watching this. They're watching somebody else because that somebody else is feeding their confirmation bias. So I'm really kind of preaching to the choir here, and I get that. Oh, man. It is like the time for the show to over, and I went through one story, and it was just that. We can quick run through a few different things. Industrial production sees biggest annual gain in 3 years despite slowing capacity utilization. That's great. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to point out back from this article. Hold on. Just to show. Yeah, right here. The whistleblower who worked under D&I Clapper also said he reached out to special counsel Durham's investigators to report suspicions of manipulation of raw intelligence that went into the ICA, but they never interviewed him, even though I likely had information relevant to ongoing investigations. As RCI, Real Clear Investigations, first reported. Okay, he's claiming he first reported this. Click on the article, takes you to here. Whistleblower ties Clinton campaign to fake Russian hack. August 8th of 2025. I'd like to show you my Twitter thread or post from the Daily Herald show that I did back on July 30th of 2025. Watch this. IC whistleblower believes activity he saw while analyzing Russia's cyber activities in 2016 was the same activity being investigated by Durham, or IC caught Jaffe. So technically, it was first reported by me, at least in terms of how it relates to Paul Sperry's reporting. Not that it's a race. But if he made it competitive by saying first reported, if he would have just said reported, I wouldn't have even said a thing. The DOJ has sued 6 states over failure to turn over voter registration lists. Strongly worded lawsuits. We can just look at the Just the News main stories here. Biden administration created exemption for many low-level Taliban civil servants to come to the U.S. The Taliban angle is an interesting one because of the Doha agreement, and I still think there's more to that story. I feel like the way the withdrawal happened, not the people dying, but the withdrawal itself with the leaving the weapons and everything, I really feel like that was the implementing of the Doha agreement as like the next logical step of the Taliban fighting terrorists in the region. They would have gotten weapons from us to do it. That's what they got. It's a narrative headline was used as a damaging thing for the Biden administration, but it was actually implementing something that the Trump administration negotiated prior to leaving office. The good old Devo term. We talked about this yesterday. Trump declares all Biden autopen pardons to be void. Did we talk about this yesterday? I don't remember if we did. But we're going to talk about that tonight a little bit. Or maybe we talked about it Saturday's Power. I can never remember. Scott Besson says that they're going to, what do you say here? They're going to be able to replicate tariffs even if it loses Supreme Court decision. I am curious to see how he does that. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Trump administration to announce new fuel economy standards Wednesday. A lot of people last night were clickbaiting you with like huge announcement coming, and I'm pretty sure this is it. New fuel economy standards. I think that's all I want to go through. We'll go through more tomorrow. Taliban destroyed poppy fields. John, you need to watch your own show, bro. I do watch my own show sometimes. John is like Bannon with a touch of woo. Is that a compliment? Black and Destroy. The pushback on blackpilling involves attachments to things they believe to be real, isn't it? Yeah. That's the thing. Like you believe something to be real, and it's very hard. Like everybody has their own beliefs and stuff, right? Like even my belief in Pence, and I'll use this as an example. It's probably a bad one because I'm still not convinced I'm wrong. But for the longest time, I was like, I believe Pence to be a white hat because I haven't seen evidence. Like all these things that you guys tell me are evidence of him being not a good guy. That's not evidence. That's just you being emotional about Pence and wanting him to be a bad guy. But maybe he's not as good. Like that was a more difficult one for me to overcome, even though I'm still not convinced. I've seen evidence, but it's becoming harder and harder to believe. And that's the thing with the InfoWar and like some of these, like the Q community stuff. And like the longer this stuff goes on, it's harder to believe some of the more fantastical aspects of it. But yeah, you get emotionally attached to this thing you want to be real. And it's hard for people to let that go. Jess Coke, that's why I love Badlands. I came here for good info or bad, not to be fed what I want to hear. No magic carpet rides for me. Yeah, I do not do magic carpet rides. Trump pardon Queller. He has a lot more people out of jail than in. That is interesting. Man, there's something. I saw a video yesterday. I should talk about this tomorrow on the show. It had to do with Tina Peters and like the people that are surrounding her to try to get her out of prison are like saying we need to resort to violence and stuff. Like that is not going to make matters better for her. Don't do that. That's not going to help get her out. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Somebody remind me. John, do you have evidence he is a white hat? My evidence, and I don't. This is speculative too, so you can't really call it evidence. But, and I said this before, if Trump is who we think he is, and he's really the only one that I trust or willing to give benefit the doubt to or whatever, would they really put somebody a heartbeat away from him that they can't trust, like that Trump couldn't trust, that isn't a good dude? Like, considering the target Trump is and represented, multiple, I mean, they all the stuff they did against him, they're going to put a bad guy there? And you can make the same argument against JD Vance too. Like, I understand that argument too. But then the counter arguments against JD Vance are much more compelling than, yeah, this guy who's a proven liar told me that, Pence raped kids. Like, yeah, I'm not going to believe that because there's no evidence of that. And the guy who told you that is like the own testimony that he gave where he said that, he like contradicted himself 10 times. So it's not really evidence, but it's my theory. Yeah, John, your report on the big ugly stay woo. Certified the election when there was already so much cheating evidence. He could have waited 10 days. Isn't that enough? I don't think so. Especially because at that time, like the time period between the actual Stone election, November 3rd or 5th, I'm brain farting. Was it November 3rd? I think it was November 3rd. Between November 3rd and January 20th, there's a lot of things that happened. And that was the time period I personally believe that they were implementing devolution. I think there's a lot of evidence for that. And so that's a time period where I'm willing to excuse away bad behavior for some people to a degree. Like, as more comes out, we might learn more about stuff, and people that I thought were, doing things for good reasons they're bad dudes. We don't know. We don't know what we don't know. We can only make our decisions and come to conclusions based off what we see. And half the time what we see is coming from like liars. Makes it difficult. The info war is not for the weak. But I don't think that certified election thing is, that's not the gotcha that a lot of people want it to be. See if there's any other comments here, and then Bannon pretend he ain't woo, but he is, maybe. Biden years staying. All right. Deb Ralt. Then Josh and Alpha think we need to tell Trump who's not good for Trump, and that's really hard when you don't actually know who's good for Trump. That's the thing, we don't know. But Trump knows. Trump has more access to info than any of us. Let's do a couple rants here. Melon Ryan says Kansas still has the stink of spook. Kind of does. Guido Higgins, if they wait long enough to bring Durham in, he could develop dementia like Mueller did. Lawfare is all about judge shopping and venue shopping. Yeah, that is true. Rocky Top apologist. In times like these, you can't get too emotionally attached or detached with or from anyone. Keep your circle small, for sure. That was one of the mistakes, obviously, clearly, as you guys can all see now, based on how things have been playing out publicly, which I'm not going to participate in it. But it is important to keep your circle small, very small. That was one of the, we probably had too many people when we started Badlands, but we're good now. We're so solid. Guido Higgins, John, I'm all in to enlist and serve proudly in the hopium wars. Just keep the saltpeter out of my coffee. I want my boner in these foxholes. Keith, I feel like your boner is all over the place. And I ain't touching to remove it, bro. So you're good. With that, guys, I'm going to get you out of here. What day is it today? Wednesday? What do we got going on today? Babufio, where we go one, we go all. Thank you for the $10. Appreciate you. So today we have, we got Shipwreck Show coming up. As always, that's great. So make sure you guys tune into that. Altered State. And then Trump's special coverage announcement that's coming up here soon. And the Power Hour. That'll be tonight. Me and Bernie Bright. Already been throwing back some good topics. So make sure you guys tune in for that. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up. Get yourself some soft disclosure. You won't regret it, especially the deodorant. I've been wearing the lemon grapefruit, like I said yesterday, more often because my mint, I have barely any left. And it's growing on me, and I'm starting to be more comfortable smelling like a grapefruit. I'm okay if people think I'm a fruit because of my deodorant. Let's say that. Anyway, you guys have a great rest of your day. Hit the thumbs up. I will see you. What's that white stuff in your hair? Are you talking to me? I can't get rid of that. It's just an optical illusion because of the sun, how it hits my hair. And it's not me. It's not gray. Anyway, I said Altered State Spetzel. It's a great show. See you guys later. Hit the thumbs up. DPH 10:30 Eastern. Have a great rest of your Monday. See you then.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
2, 3. Let's get started.
That's what she said.
Oh, that's real good.
Why they stopping me? Stopping me.